Of the County Board of Commissioners Finance and Administration Committee together, and we'll knock off all the other conversations. So we'll first approval of the agenda. Any additions or deletions or changes you'd wish to make? I'm assuming that the chair can change the order if one of our speakers is not present.
She is. All right.
All right, well then, we'll do a call to the public. Mr. Newport, did you want to say anything in general?
I have nothing tonight today.
Okay. Do we? No. Then we'll move on to our first item of business, which is consider approving the prime contract change order number 21 with Clark Construction in the net additional amount of $107,574 and authorize the board chairperson to sign the same. Morning, Heather.
Good morning, Heidi.
Heidi.
Good morning. That's okay. I got a sister named Heather, so I get called Heather a lot.
Call me anything, just don't call me late for lunch, right?
Right? Can you hear me okay? I know sometimes with the video on, you have trouble hearing me, so I just thought I'd ask.
We hear you fine. I mean, at the meeting, we've got maybe every fourth word or every half your words. But today we hear you fine. No,
Okay, well, that's good.
reading your lips.
I'm sorry, what was that?
The rest of your discussion at the meeting last week, we were just reading your lips.
Oh, God, she's sorry.
No,
No.
All right, so PCCO number 21, that isn't starting here with PCO number 57. That is for CCD 18. These were some changes that this one was ongoing for a little while there because we had some going back and forth with revising some pricing and stuff like that to make sure we have the accurate numbers. But there were some door changes back, gosh, I think it was like September, roughly timeframe, where we changed some doors, we changed some door hardware, we added some card readers, some keypads, we added some stools at the phones. And then we had, that was kind of it for Pauley Jail there because they had the security side of things. And that was a cost of $36,983. For Master Electric, we had to add some TVs here, remove some floor boxes. There was adding data for the phones and then adding video for the phone, and then adding some wireless items in the building. Also added some card readers, those, adding HDMI cords for TVs. And I don't know if I said card readers, but added some card readers. So that was a cost of $130,074. Now I know I'm going to come down here in a few minutes to CCD 23, which deducted a lot of these things were in CCD 18 because we had some changes later, and I'll explain that when I get down there. So that's why there's a big credit. We're finishing up CCD 18, Kanowinski with some door changes and door hardware. We had to make some changes there based on different security options that the sheriff wanted. And that was a cost of $23,592. So total cost from buyout was $190,649. So then we move on down to CCD 23, and CCD 23 kind of removed a bunch of items that were in CCD 18. So we had added TVs in that one. We added, in CCD 18, we added the TVs, we added the data. In CCD 23, we removed all those items. Sheriff wanted to pull the TVs out and buy them himself because he could get a better deal on credits or on TVs than we would be providing. So removing that, removed all the data for the phones because they changed phone provider. So that saved a lot of money there. The phone provider is actually going to run phone cabling to one single phone in there now. Versus, and so that was a very huge cost benefit for the county. We also, let's see what else, we removed a bunch of CD, or there was a CD player in the large training room. There was some speakers, some coax cable, and some Miracast devices in some of these conference rooms that we removed as well in the CCD. So That's where that $93,132 credit came from. So it was kind of the items from CCD 18 that was originally added. We removed them in CCD 13 after doing some changes. I hope that makes sense because it's a little confusing. And then Poly Jail had no changes to that CCD. So the total credit to buyout was $93,132.
Okay.
Moving down to PCO number 117. But the sheriff asked for a credit on the key box. He's going to be providing his own key box, and I believe that one has sensors in there. So if someone doesn't return the keys, they can be notified. So that's a credit of $1,138. And down to PCO number 122. Strauss Masonry here for RFI 369. During our MDOC walkthrough, that was, I think, December, I believe that we were out on site. We had to add privacy walls. Those were at the toilet in there. So that way the inmates had, actually it was the half wall. I'm sorry, we already added that privacy wall. So originally we had it just a flat top where the inmates could stand on top of. That was not what the MDOC was looking for. They were afraid that if someone were to stand on top of those, that they could jump off and hurt themselves. So we had to add that slanted wall kind of at a 45-degree angle so that no one could actually stand on there and jump off. So that was the cost for a Strauss of $9,490. And then Murray to paint those changes was $253. And that was a total cost of $9,743. That's from buyout. And the last one item on here is for Venturi boxes. So the boxes themselves came with a 10-inch duct. What was noted on the drawings was an 8-inch duct. So we had to change that from the 8-inch to the 10-inch for these boxes, and that is $1,453. And that also came from buyout. Right now, I have added some changes to our log here, and kind of where we're sitting at this point. What we have in buyout remaining is $79,680. This is current numbers. I know you have a different number, what you're looking at probably. We still have not touched our contingency at this point. So total amount that we have right now combined with buyout and contingency is $861,454. We are at about 72% with construction. And roughly we have figured here about 39% of buyout contingency remaining. So I don't, if anyone has any questions.
No, I know the controls for that building are very technical, and I'm not going to be questioning changes in the change orders dealing with that. The sheriff and seems to have a good handle on what's needed and working through it.
He does.
The video and telephone, I knew he was looking to work with a new contractor in a more lucrative a contract for the county, which would changes and so. Do you have any questions on any of these? I do not see anything out of order.
No, ma'am.
Well, Heidi, thank you very much. Looks like we'll get this moved to the next week's meeting and get it approved.
All right, great. Well, thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Have a great day, Ed.
Bye-bye.
I will move the consideration of approving the prime contract change order number 21 with Clark Construction in the net additional amount $107,574 to the work session for consideration. It's been moved and supported. Any further discussion on this item? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. It moves forward. Next item, discussion regarding opioid settlement funds. Amy Dolinsky from the MPPA MAC Technical Advisor is going to be here to answer our questions and
Hi, good
Hi,
morning,
Amy.
Amy.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to attend virtually today. Happy to answer any questions. Again, the technical advisor on the settlement funds with the Michigan Association of Counties in a role to provide no-cost technical assistance to any counties that want support throughout the process.
we appreciate that. I think the one question we have deals with the county board's desire to possibly take the settlement funds and assign them to the community foundation for investment. And we retain control over the funds as a county board. But then we make the interest available in perpetuity, not touching the principal, but the interest, making it available for local grants. And the question is, are we as a county entity able to pass those on to a nonprofit entity to do that for the county legally to do that?
So you absolutely can pass the funds through. So we see this with other county departments. We also see this with I think you all are probably the only county I've heard talking about local foundations, but we know that the foundations are very interested in that. And then we also see funds being passed through through community mental health or the prepaid inpatient health plan system. In terms of the creating an endowment, is that what you're referring to?
Correct.
So in creating an endowment, from everything that I know at this point would mean that is allowable, but it would really rely on Corporation Counsel's interpretation of the legal documents. But I do not see any current issues with endowment. We do see some recommendations that the state use their funds that way, which they have not. I don't think anyone has done this yet, but it also depends on the amount of funds and I guess determination of where you would like the interest to go as well. So any interest that is earned on your settlement really unrestricted. So you have for most settlements, the 85% that has to be used for purposes of opioid remediation. So aligning with both Exhibit E, the list of allowable uses, as well as the legal definition of opioid remediation. And then you have the 15% that is currently unrestricted, and then any of your interest is also unrestricted. And then the county, no matter if they're passing the funds through any other entity, is still responsible for that biannual reporting through the Brown Greer payment portal.
Okay, so we were looking at the community foundation to make the investment, to inform us on an annual basis what the interest amount is available for grant purposes. But then the county board would set up a commission comprised of professionals in the field dealing with drug and issues. And we'd set up the parameters for the grant that would have to meet the requirements of the settlement in terms of how those monies are being used. And then the commission would review the grant applications and make recommendations back to the county board. And then the county board would then appropriate those dollars for the grant for those particular projects. I think we'd probably set aside some dollars for the administration, because you said we'd still be responsible for is it annual reporting?
Biannual.
Biannual reporting. So we'd still have to cover those costs. We'd probably have to cover some costs for the per diems for the commission members that serve. But that sounds like it'd be something that would pass the legal requirements of use of public funds by the state.
It does sound allowable. So of course, those funds actually don't flow through the state at all to come to you. They go directly from those companies settling to an escrow account that is then distributed directly to you through Brown Greer, that national administrator. So the state has no attachment to these dollars. Your reporting doesn't go to the state, it goes directly to Brown Greer, and you're only reporting on expenditures that do not align with the definition of opioid remediation. So your administrative costs, other expenditures you may have, and then those expenditures are placed on a public facing website that already exists. So that website's already up. You can kind of see the structure of that. I'm happy to send it over, but it does sound that all of it aligns. But of course, I'm not an attorney, and what's allowable county to county and even within a city or township within your county can be different. It's all based on the local government's legal interpretation.
And so where are we at right now with legal counsel?
Our own legal counsel, had concerns about using the funds through the community foundation because the opioid settlement said the funds are to be used and they just philosophically took issue with placing it over here to specifically never be used, just the interest, right? So that concern is what led me to reach out to Amy. I know we've reached out to Attorney General's office for guidance in this regard as well. Which would, I think, probably trump part of the legal counsel.
I will also add, I mean, absolutely, it's about being able to use those funds. And so I think what most counties are looking at is trying to balance spending based on the urgency of the crisis, but also being able to have appropriate planning. And so I think there's a lot of the structure that you all outlined that really makes a lot of sense in terms of having a commission or a board or a task force to be able to kind of make some of those recommendations. I think just the key thing to keep in mind with these dollars is really how different they are in the sense that the county is not receiving them because of harms caused to the county, but because of harms caused to the community.
Okay. And we know those harms are gonna be with us for years and years and years, and if we spend it all right now, we have nothing, to maybe look at innovative things, and solutions in the future, so. Okay. Questions for Amy?
Sounds good to me. Thank you, man. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
So with that, how long do we wait for something back from legal counsel? Do we need to wait for Attorney General since it's not state funds that are being?
Well, I think that was just more of their opinion on it. Than to follow, something that they were doing. Whatever you would like me. Whatever you would like.
I don't see why we can't move forward. I was thinking it wouldn't hurt to hear from the Attorney General's office.
I know that Alicia Pasquale from the Community Foundation had reached out to them too, but I know she's also off on leave right now, so. We're very happy. So maybe we can circle back to AG and grab some.
I know those funds don't pass through the state, but the Attorney General's office was responsible for setting up the guidelines on how they're used
Absolutely.
in the oversight of how they're used.
And even though they don't come from the state, they're still a source of public funds to the county. And so we still have to follow the state expenditure guidelines. So, but I didn't think a nonprofit person could ask the Attorney General. I thought they had to come from like an official capacity from maybe county administration or from one of our elected officials. Might want to reach out to Jerry Nyer or Roger to see if they could help us with this to get an expedited.
Yeah, that's an idea.
Because I'm thinking if we continue to wait, when we have uses now,
Right.
It's not the best thing we do. Always, again, set up our internal fund.
Sooner we get it set up, the sooner we're gonna have monies to dispense for. That's what I'm thinking.
And there's more settlements forthcoming. I saw some paperwork on the Kroger settlement that will be forthcoming.
Right.
There's
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 more money.
more, there's
Yeah.
more, there's more. More coming.
Would it be in our best interest to begin the process? You talked about setting up a board or a task force. I mean, with the condition that we're waiting on approval or waiting on further information. I don't see why we can't just begin the process moving forward.
Well, I thought of that too, but then I was thinking of all the things on the plate for county administration to say, okay, now we need to have bylaws for another commission. And then we need, hopefully this commission would have the expertise to set up the grant requirements and requesting documents to help us with
The
that.
community foundation will help us a bit with that as well, but
Yeah.
remember, once we place money with the community foundation, it has to be there for a while before anything is available to
Disperse.
dole out, disperse through any kind of grant program. You have to have it with them in their coffers for so long. They count so many quarters and you have to have.
Before there's what they call a spendable.
You got it.
But as if we made the investment there, once it's there, we're starting that clock moving. Then we can still work on the bylaws for
Absolutely.
whatever we need.
Probably a good thing to work on while that
That's kind of where I'm headed.
spendable is building.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm headed. As soon as we can get that money there, that starts the clock ticking to where we can spend it and get it available to the people who need it.
And I do work with, I do go to the meetings of the Isabella Substance Awareness Council. And I know that they've said they'd be willing to help. So, and they would probably come up with professionals that would serve on that commission.
Yeah.
I mean, we
Experts.
want that.
Yeah,
yeah,
very,
we
like,
want that.
people with expertise, exactly.
Oh, Miss Delinky has her hand raised.
Oh, thank you. So I just wanted to let you all know that on the Michigan Association of Counties Opioid Settlement Resource Center, we do have guidance documents, templates, and planning tools. So an RFP template, contract template, spend plan templates, a lot of, here's the people that you should consider for a steering committee, or a task force or a board. So a lot of tools have already been developed if that's of any use to you as well. And of course, if you all need any technical assistance support, anything from administrative support to meeting facilitation, that's all something that we can support at no cost as well.
Okay, and if we have professionals with the Isabella Substance Awareness Council willing to look at those documents and put something together that the county board could then approve, is it possible to make payments to those individuals for their time from the fund?
Yes, so best practice around stipends for that type of work would primarily be for folks that are not already they're not already being paid for that work. So if it falls into their job description, but especially with individuals with lived and living experience. So individuals that are in recovery from a substance use disorder or people that are currently using drugs, which you will absolutely, I anticipate, want to hear from. There is best practice to pay them, and you can use your 85% for planning and coordination purposes as well.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Any other discussion on this issue? All right, then we'll move on to our next item. Number 6, consider approving the easement for electrical facilities between Isabella County and Consumers Energy Company to install electric for 201 North Main Street and authorize the board chairperson to sign the same.
Yeah, so we were approached by Consumers Energy on a neighboring parcel in the city regarding an easement for their electric installation. Director Shoemaker went out to inspect the property that they're saying that it was on, and he basically said that the electrical line is going to be on the city's property, but that city zoning allows a building to be within 5 foot of a property line, but Consumers Energy requires 6 foot on each side, so it actually the easement will actually come into our property. But Director Shoemaker had no issues with that area. There wouldn't be any disturbance to our property really, doesn't look like. And actually took time to help them, help coordinate with them to say, hey, we're not using the lot right now, so if you need a staging area, help to coordinate that with them.
Okay.
It is checked with legal, and this is consumers standard form for property owners grant of easement, and they have no issue, no legal objection to the form. Okay.
Good.
Pretty straightforward for 201 North Main to receive electric service.
So what is 201? Is that part of the center project?
I think it might even be a restroom building,
I
to
think-
be honest.
I think that's what it is.
I think
yeah.
it is a
That's
restaurant
the new
building.
little park there. It's like the park.
Yeah.
And it's on the other side of the street, so,
Correct.
and north and south, so that
You
means.
got it. Yes, you got it. Yeah, which is, things are really taking shape downtown if you
Moving
haven't
right
been.
along.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. What a novel idea. Do away with that road.
I think it's a good project, but I did say, why is the county wasting its money on the town center when we could use it for something else? But so people still don't understand the different function
Yeah, agreed,
relationships. So
agreed.
would you like to make the motion?
Sure. Move to take consideration of approving the easement for electrical facilities between Isabella County and Consumer Energy to install electric for 201 North Main Street to our work session Tuesday evening.
I will support that. It's been moved and supported to take this consideration to the work session. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, it moves forward. Item number 7, consider adopting resolution 2024-12. A reimbursement resolution declaring official intent to issue bonds for the Isabella County Administration Complex Rehabilitation Project in an amount not to exceed $11 million.
Not see bond council, so I am reaching out to him right now. Now I can go on to the budget amendment.
Move on to number 8, come back.
Do I move on right now? or-
Yeah, I just shot him a text, and so we'll see if,
Okay.
I mean, I know he has got the Zoom invite, and I know he needed to join on Zoom, so you can set that aside.
Aside for now.
All right, we'll come back to it. Number 8, consider approving fiscal year 2024 budget amendment number 2024-07, third quarter of budget adjustments for general fund, and authorize the board chairperson to sign the same.
So ultimately, good news here. This is just for general fund. A lot of times we bring a budget amendment for other funds at the same time as well, but there really wasn't much that needed our attention in the outside of general fund. The story for this budget amendment is that it is ultimately positive. I'll walk through it. We always try to do some of the things that are increasing and decreasing and netting out to zero. But overall, we're actually adding to fund balance almost $56,000. So this is a happy budget amendment. The big story, really, what is driving an increase in revenues is an additional almost 132,000 in recreational marijuana distributions to the county. So far this year, we've received just over 391,000, which is what we'll receive for the year. but we hadn't budgeted that much, and I don't believe had budgeted that much in the fiscal 25 budget as well, so. As we work through that draft, we'll be building some additional in there.
Do you have any idea approximately what we have budgeted for it?
I feel like it's around 250,000.
I was thinking 225 or 250, so, okay, so that's.
So the
100.
increase in, outlets,
I think
what's
so,
driving
yes.
that? Yeah.
And then,
Dispensaries.
yes, and they figure it out statewide, and then they divide it by the number of dispensaries, and so that's what the county as a host county gets. This is in addition to what I think the local jurisdictions get as well, the cities
Over
get.
and above.
Yeah,
So you roughly we're saying might be an additional 140 to 160 into our general fund
correct.
over and above what we budgeted. Okay. That's
I know the
that's a
city
plus.
was originally looking at 4 dispensaries and limiting it to that, so they had a chance to gain some experience. But I know they were looking at a lawsuit, and I don't know if they just dropped it all, because there's so many dispensaries
It's
continue to
definitely more than
open.
4.
They moved that cap off it and opened it up. I don't know if they raised the cap to another level or just took it off.
Or just, I
They-
think they just took it off. I don't think they set a new. let me see. So I'm letting bond counsel in. He's in
Okay.
the waiting room. I don't know if you
Let's-
want to go
Let's
back.
return to that.
No,
I
keep
think
them
that's a
waiting.
good idea.
Who's representing bond council?
His name is Eric McLaughlin. He's from Dickinson Wright, and he's just now coming into the Zoom.
Eric, are you with us now?
I am. Good morning.
Good
Morning.
Good morning, Eric.
Thank you for joining us. You've taught me a lot over the years, Eric, but there's no way I would be able to handle this without you. So thanks for hopping on this morning. The reason that we're talking about this notice, we're gonna borrow, right? We're intending to borrow for our county administration building rehab project. And normally, when we intend to borrow, the first action we take is a notice of intent resolution. And we say, here, this sets it up, it defines it, it sets that ceiling amount that we're not to exceed, it sets that 45-day referendum period when we advertise. But this is different. This is a reimbursement resolution, and it's a kind of a precursor. That notice of intent resolution will still have to happen. But Mr. McLaughlin is going to explain to you what the reimbursement resolution is, why we're doing it, and how it can help us if we want to capture more expenses in our borrow.
Right, reach back and.
Reach back, yes,
Mhm.
yes. How'd I tee that up, Eric?
Thank you very much, Nicole. That was a good tee up for me. So yeah, this is different than our normally when we've borrowed in the past, we've done a notice of intent resolution that approved the form and publication of a notice of intent that includes a project description and a maximum amount to be borrowed. We weren't quite ready to do that yet. So instead, what we're doing at the moment, and when we have done that in the past, we have included the reimbursement language that qualifies bonds for reimbursement from future proceeds of bonds issued. So because we weren't quite ready to do the notice of intent, we're doing just the reimbursement resolution, which will qualify expenditures made prior to the issuance of bonds for reimbursement from those future bond proceeds. Under the federal tax code, there is a statute that requires the issuer, in this case, the county, to adopt a reimbursement resolution declaring its official intent to make expenditures prior to the issuance of bonds and then to reimburse those expenditures from future bond proceeds. This resolution will qualify prior expenditures for reimbursement so long as they are made within 60 days prior to the date that this resolution is adopted, for like hard construction costs, acquisition of materials, property, things like that. There is an exception from the statute that allows up to 20% of what's known as the issue price of the bonds to be used to reimburse soft costs, like for architectural expenses, engineering expenses, testing, so on and so forth. Things that are not acquisition of materials, hard costs of construction. Then there is a smaller exception under the rule for $100,000 that can be reimbursed kind of without regard to the date that the reimbursement resolution is adopted or any kind of date that the expenditure is paid. So when it comes down to the end of the deal and we're preparing the tax documentation, we'll get a list of all the prior expenditures made, and we'll confirm that they are properly allocable to reimbursement proceeds. And then we will order them in terms of these expenses go with the general reimbursement 60 days back from the adoption of the reimbursement resolution. There's another group of expenses that get allocated to preliminary expenditures for soft costs, which is what I was talking about previously, the 20% of issue price limitation. And then if we need it, then we'll tap into the $100,000 de minimis for any purpose reimbursement. So this short resolution qualifies prior expenditures, hard construction cost prior expenditures, and expenditures for that $100,000 and the 20% exception by declaring your official intent to make prior expenditures and then later reimburse them from bond proceeds. Does that all make sense? And are there any questions?
That makes sense.
So, we're looking at, not only our building costs moving forward, reconstruction, but we're capturing our costs with, asbestos remediation and
Yes, at
moving
least for the last 60 days, we can go back and capture that asbestos. And that's
Okay.
why we're doing this reimbursement resolution. We're not ready with the notice of intent. We're still doing due diligence of which way we're going, right? And we still don't have a final design. We don't have things nailed down, but we know that we have a not to exceed price. We know that not to exceed price of 11 million is what has been used in the fiscal 25 budget, kind of set that annual payment of what we might have going forward. And now that's going to depend on length of borrow and of course, interest rate when we finally do go out to borrow. But that's been our due diligence to use that 11 million number. We can't afford more than that.
Right.
That's what we have built into
That's
our
what we-
budget
that's
as a
all we got.
payment. So why would we not come out and say that's our not to exceed?
Right.
That's the one thing we have to have today when we do this is we're not gonna borrow over this amount.
And two allows us to reach back. We do it now, we can reach back to 60 days.
Yes,
Does not mean that the project will cost $11 million.
Correct.
That is our absolute ceiling. Gotcha. And I wonder how much of that abatement cost can be recouped? How much of that was within the last 60 days? There's probably some of it that goes past that.
it does, which we've already used ARPA for a good number of those expenses. But I think we can still reach back, I think, $500,000. It's not just the abatement, but it's also the testing for the abatement as well, right? To get that building ready.
Mhm.
Mhm.
No?
Yeah, and like I was describing earlier, I heard something about testing. Those testing costs would qualify for the preliminary expenditures exception to the general rule. So the general rule is the 60-day look back. The first exception is preliminary expenditures for the architectural engineering, testing, so on and so forth, soft costs of the project.
Great.
That's a higher limit, and it goes back. You can apply it without regard to the date that the reimbursement resolution is adopted under this statute. But we did want to get the reimbursement resolution in place to capture any of those hard costs within the last 60 days. And to move forward reimbursing any future hard costs prior to the issuance of bonds. The other thing about this resolution is that it doesn't, if it's adopted and for some reason you don't need to issue bonds going forward, then it doesn't require you to issue any bonds. It's kind of like the notice of intent resolution. It's a procedural step. It doesn't force your hand later on in the process. So it's just there to tap into an exception that exists in the tax code.
Allow us to recover.
Mhm.
And maybe you already said this, what defines a hard cost versus a soft cost?
Hard cost would be acquisition of materials, property, equipment, paying a vendor to go in and swing a hammer. Soft cost would be more like architectural, design, engineering, testing, so on and so forth. Kind of in that regard, there isn't really a bright line, it just describes preliminary expenditures in that manner in the statute. And the preliminary expenditures are what I'm referring to as soft costs, more like the professional costs, and then the hard costs would be more like the vendor and contractor type costs.
So all of the costs from Spicer as our architect and engineer, no matter when they were incurred, we can go back and include in the borrow.
Correct.
Mhm.
So those are
Up to 20% of what will be the issue price of the bonds when they're issued.
to 20%.
Yes, up to that 20%.
Right.
Which they won't come. anywhere near.
Well, this seems like the next logical step to get our county home back in order and get our employees, staffs back into a county administration building. We've been doing a lot of work over the months. Not only on the building, but coming up with a budget that has funds in it to pay back the bond over time, so. I will make the motion unless there's further discussion, questions?
I want just one question. Eric, is there any deadline to adopt a notice of intent resolution after this reimbursement resolution? On this
No,
project?
there's no deadline. The date at which you adopt the notice of intent resolution will be driven more by the timing of when you need to receive the proceeds. So when you adopt the notice of intent resolution, you have to publish the notice of intent. That starts a 45-day referendum period within which you can't offer the bonds for sale or publish any official statements or anything. So it kind of freezes the process for 45 days. And assuming you don't get any petitions for referendum, then you can proceed after that point to offer the bonds for sale in the market and then sell them and proceed with the financing tasks.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you.
So we'll bring this for consideration of the work session and adoption consideration at the regular meeting. Next week at the work session, are we going to talk about the progress we've made in terms of determination of number of floors we're gonna use, but we still have other options that we're looking
We
at?
made that determination yet?
Yeah, it's kind of, I think we need to give it a little bit.
And that's just, get this reimbursement. I don't think we're there yet. I think if we were there, we would be doing the notice of intent. And I just don't think we're ready. So I think this reimbursement resolution to say, hey, it's our intention to borrow for this project. We don't know exactly what it looks like, but we know it's not over 11 million. Yes, sir.
I think I didn't talk about it because it doesn't seem at this moment pressing, but there is a future limitation on when you can apply the reimbursement resolution. You can reimburse expenditures made up to 18 months after the later of the date that the expenditures paid or the date the facility is placed in service, but no longer than 3 years. So those are the future limitations on when you can look back.
Thank you.
So I will make the motion to take consideration of resolution 2024-12, a reimbursement resolution declaring official intent to issue bonds for the Isabella County Administration Complex Rehabilitation Project in an amount not to exceed $11 million. Or it's been moved and supported. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. It moves forward. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all for having me.
Have a great day,
Thanks.
sir.
Enjoy your day.
Well, then we'll move on then to continuation of the budget amendment presentation.
Yeah, so I spoiler alert, right? We knew from earlier that the end result is positive. We're adding to fund balance, which is fantastic, especially at this point in the year. What's driving this? You'll see if we walk our way down, that recreational marijuana increased almost 132,000. Our other federal grant revenue, ARPA, we had in the current fiscal 24 budget, we had said we were going to do the Board of Commissioners AV upgrades, and indeed we are. It just won't be this fiscal year now. It'll be part of the building rehabilitation project. And so what we have to do budget wise is decrease that use of ARPA by 150,000 and reduce the expenditure by 150,000, right? It's not happening. So that's offsetting. And down down below, you'll see that was in that computers, Board of Commissioners, we're decreasing 150, right? So that just offsets. Another good news, revenues at the top, we're increasing, $15,000 state reimbursed managed assigned counsel. This is, that piece. Don't think public defender. I know we usually think managed assigned counsel with the 25% of the public defender's office. This is that piece that is not public defender. The courts, have to assign these folks. And it's for the abuse and neglect cases and that public defender's office doesn't handle. But the state is reimbursing this year $15,000 for that, so that was just a
Great.
little bit of good news. The expense, I think, is offset down below by an increase to appellate defender expenses, which are a little different, actually. That's appeals, right? If someone wants to appeal, that doesn't go through public defender anymore, that comes through our courts. So it's separate assigned counsel. The next revenues that you see increasing are third-party contributions for sheriff and reimbursed expenses from MMRMA sheriff. So remember his manned aerial vehicle or unmanned aerial vehicle, I think is what it's called, the drone. That he got donations and a RAP grant from MMRMA to purchase. So you'll see that those revenues increasing, and then down below, there's new equipment sheriff of $11,000, almost $700 that those donations are offsetting. The next revenue increasing is the state grant for medical marijuana. We're increasing those revenues 6,700, and down below, we're increasing the expense 6,700, just building that into the budget. We hadn't budgeted for that grant, and as I reported, maybe at the last meeting or two ago, we had already bought the medication lock boxes. Will be actually Veterans Service Officer Ian Welch will be handing those out at the farm and youth fair in July. This is a big number next for increase in revenue, but it is offset by an equal expense. This is $105,000. We're increasing the DTE escrow, right, for solar, so for their solar application. Those expenses that it costs us to review their special use permit or otherwise vet out the application, they cover. So we're increasing the revenue, increasing the expense in the same amount. Let's see. So that's the story for revenues. Down below, you'll see a decrease in salaries and wages and health insurance for admin and an increase in contract services and attorney fees. Those they don't offset completely. We are spending a little more than we're able to offset, but those savings come in salaries and wages from, we've had a vacant accountant position for a while. And that's part of why those contract services are up. And attorney fees just were not estimated high enough at budget time. We have lots of issues we've been reaching out to legal for, unfortunately. In equalization, you'll see a decrease in salaries and wages of about 25,000 and an increase in contracted services of 25,000. And that's taking that move to Preston Community Services as of June 1st. Remember, we were eliminating on-site, any county equalization staff and moving to that full contract. And so this is being able to just moving those dollars for the rest of this budget year from wages into contracted services. That tax roll processing expense for equalization, that increase of 15,000, that is not offset. That's just, that's one of those things that is costing us more. That is where we had that expense originally for the work that equalization had been doing for the townships. We do need that in there for the work that was done in the beginning of the fiscal year on the winter bills. But that will be going away going forward, but it's something we forgot to budget for. Another reason to maybe move away from that. So we've talked about these, as we move our way down, we've talked about the Assigned counsel, we've talked about Sheriff's drone. We've talked about medical marijuana, salaries and wages, overtime for Wise Township Patrol. In the current budget, we had built in the reimbursement from Wise Township, it's usually a $25,000 reimbursement, $25,000 expense. These are additional patrols from the sheriff's office to Wise Township. We missed budgeting the expense in the current budget, so we have to budget for that, so that's an increase of 25,000. This new equipment corrections, an increase, this one is not offset by grants or donations. Just over 15,000, this was new equipment, a commercial washing machine and a server needed at the jail, so nothing really fun or exciting, but certainly expensive, so expenses we have to cover. You'll see these next two is just a decrease and an increase of expenditure line items getting of the same amount, just moving that to the correct line item for emergency management. And see the DTE increase for their escrow, and then the last one is contracted services and remonumentation. You know, the timing of that, you'd think that we would be done marking all of these, but we're not, and so the timing of when those revenues come back to us, I know Karen's tried to explain. The long and short of it is we've got $10,000 more in expenditures on the books current year than we budgeted, so we do have to increase that. But even with the remon and the corrections equipment, the not budgeting for equalization for the Wise Township Road Patrol, we're still adding to fund balance almost 56,000. Congratulations, Melissa, if you're listening. That's really good budgeting.
At least she's not listening. and
I hope
Enjoying
she's
her
not
vacation.
listening, yes.
So speaking of equalization, any word on how that training went on the 6th?
I stopped out on the 6th. I happened to stop out during the lunch time, and there was a full house. I thought the room was full.
Good.
He seemed to be pleased at how it was going. I know at the end of the training, he's like, okay, how many of you got this? And there might have been one, right? That was excited. But I think more of them were, I'm okay with it because I know there's resources, right? There weren't
Good.
any of, I'm not doing this, right? There weren't any of that, but
That's
kudos to Pete and Preston Community Services for pulling that training together and
Yep.
his staff. And as I understand, thank yous are in order to Assessor Denise Hall, who is an assessor to several of our
Yes.
units, who really stepped
Instrumental.
up, kind of put that fear aside and said, okay, this is happening. Let's figure out the best way to make it happen, and
nice.
would test ways to make it happen and to make it be successful. So sounds like we owe Denise a big thank you.
I agree entirely. I spoke with her right after the email went out about having to move everything up and to the summer tax bill versus the winter tax bill. And I spoke with several of the township treasurers, and then I spoke with Denise. And after my conversation with Denise, she said that she would be more than glad to step in and try to help smooth this thing out between Preston Community Services and the township treasurers. So she stood in that middle ground along with Judy and is working through this is my understanding. And I can't express enough appreciation to her. She handles my townships. So, thank you,
Yes.
thank you very much.
I went to the co-township meeting last night, and that was one of the items on the agenda. So they seem to have things well in order, ready to move on with the summer tax mailing and.
Great.
And I said, well, if you have any snafus and you have any issues getting the information you need, to let me know. So.
Great.
And I think the deadline is this Friday to get it to KCI, the printer, so we'll know very soon. Very soon.
I have township meetings tonight
Yes,
and then through the week, so
Uh-huh.
I'll have a real good idea.
please,
Great.
if you hear
If I
any,
hear anything else
yeah, let us know
Yeah.
so that we can address those, but I'm sure.
by
Keith's
Friday, that's why key
Yes,
date
sir.
is Friday, getting the information to the printers.
understanding.
And we go roll it from there, but this next few days is good. Do you have any other questions?
Yep, my other question on this is those, and this is probably a question for the court people or the public defender, but I just wonder why those abuse and neglect cases fall outside of the public defender realm. And I know Mr. Hausman has talked about if they go to a nonprofit, then he can pick up those abuse and neglect
Yes.
cases. I guess I don't understand how
I don't
that
think
all
they do juvenile though, do they?
works.
Correct. That is correct. Not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah. I think that would
Sounds like
be,
that's coming.
I think that would be a question for Court Administrator Curtis. which
Yeah.
I'm happy to
Yep.
find out and have for Tuesday.
Okay. Yep, I just was
Good question.
curious why that. I'm sure there's a good reason for it.
Do you have any other?
Nope.
I got a couple. It has to do with the new equipment for corrections. We're about to move within a few months. And we just spent $15,651 on a commercial washer and a server. And those are gonna be basically brand new. When we make that switch, what's going to happen with that equipment? When we do make the move, I mean,
I
that's,
feel like the server is able to go with us. I'm not so sure about the washing machine, but I'm sure we tried. I knowing facilities,
I know,
I'm
exactly.
sure we tried
That's-
to repair it.
right, that's
and-
not my point.
and-
My point is, what's going to become of it, because we spent the money, you know.
It's a brand new piece of equipment.
Right, and you say somewhere along, the line, we need to recoup that, is my feeling. If you just bought a brand new piece of equipment, you're only gonna use for a few months. Are we gonna be able to resell it for something close to what I guess that's my question. And is that in the works? That should be something that just gets left there, when it could be resold. I doubt if we're gonna need that washer, commercial grade washer in that facility anymore.
So this is what I probably should have looked at the invoice a little better. We bought the washing machine, there's some install, almost 6,000, but the washing machine itself was around 4. The install, there's almost 500 for a steel mounting base and almost 1,500 for delivery and setup. Okay, so this is what we're looking at. Coin operated washer that was removed from a working laundromat in 22. The washer was manufactured in 2018. The washer will be converted to push to start prior to installation to not require coins. That was smart. So back to if we could have fixed the one we had, we would have. This is not a new washer. It's a used piece of equipment, which still worth about $4,000 apparently. And perhaps once we figure out what's gonna happen with that building when Sheriff and his guests move out, then maybe we can better repurpose that washer. Maybe the Strickler Center needs that, we'll find a use for it, but albeit I'm glad to see they did not spend 15,000 on.
I guess that's gonna be my concern moving forward between now and when they move into the new building. What kind of monies are we spending in the corrections and in the sheriff's office currently? Can we do with less or figure out a way if we are gonna buy new? Do we have a plan in place to recoup some of those funds, those monies that are being expended in a building that's gonna be obsolete in a matter of months?
And I think Sheriff has that forefront in his mind. I really do. I think the server can go with him. I think he didn't go out and buy a new washer. Right? He did what would work for him. You
Temporarily.
heard Heidi talk about, let's pull those TVs out of your budget. We can get them cheaper than that. He's working with his new communications vendor to help
Sure.
put some of that stuff in the new building and transition.
Good.
I guarantee he's on top of it, but.
Okay.
Definitely remind him.
Good.
Question.
Would you like to make the motion to?
Sure. I'd like to move to take consideration of approving the fiscal year 2024 budget amendment number 2024-07, third quarter budget adjustments for general fund to our Tuesday work session.
I'll support that. Been moved and supported to move the budget amendment to the work session. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. It moves forward. We're getting down to the discussion regarding the fiscal year 2025 budget draft. So we had a presentation at our last meeting. We're a lot better shape than we've been in years. But we still have to find some way to adjust some dollars, or we're gonna have to take it out of our fund balance or out of our contingency. Even though, I don't know when we're gonna get the wage study. I don't see how we're gonna be able to implement that across the board, but we probably need to take a look at really egregious issues with that. And there'll be some costs there, which is gonna add to that negative figure. And on top of it, we'll have to take a look at the COLA adjustment that we're gonna do. And there's gonna be considerable costs added to that, so. I don't know if you have given any more thought to, I know you're working on the next rendition.
We are, I think we included the budget calendar in the packets because I think the next draft comes. Oh, it's gonna feel like a ways away, because you don't have that first July meeting. So is it the 9th? I feel like it's July 9th.
I think it's July.
The next finance.
Mhm.
And so that'll be the next rendition that comes to you. We're working through some good news and some unexpected news in the budget, right? And we'll have that next draft. I will say we're closer than we've ever been with the requested budget, right? Usually that is kind of pie in the sky. So we are getting closer. We are working through with the insurance committee on our insurance renewal, and that's kind of a big question mark as well. We did not build enough into the budget to renew as is. And so we'll be looking at some potential changes there. We don't know what that looks like yet. We are just scratching the surface, and we are quoting the market, as Lisa says. We're quoting everything, right? We're quoting other carriers, we're quoting self-insured, we're looking at what that looks like. So I will say, as we were looking at budget numbers after the insurance committee meeting just yesterday, we noticed, we wondered what was happening in the current budget, because we're having to feed, if you will, general fund is having to loan to our self-insurance fund. We call it self-insurance fund. It's just the fund that when payroll hits and our expenses for healthcare, our expenses for HRA, our expenses for prescriptions through payroll, they're deducted from those, not from paychecks, but from department budgets, and they're fed into what we call 678 fund. It's a internal service fund used to be the self-insurance fund. It's what we still call it, but that's where all of that goes, and that's what we pay our Blue Cross Blue Shield bills out of. That's what we pay our HRA. Yes, internal service fund. So when payroll happens behind the scenes, those employer expenses, that money comes out of department budgets and actually physically cash, goes into the self-insurance fund. And that's what we pay Blue Cross Blue Shield bills, our prescription bills, our HRA bills out of that. So we noticed this year, we're having to feed that. And oh no, we didn't budget enough in the current year to cover. Well, what we found yesterday, what was happening, we budgeted enough in the current year, but when we renew October 1 in payroll, those rates have to be updated to pull from the departments, the employer expense to feed that fund. We didn't update employee cost shares because they didn't change. We didn't update employer expense. So these are sitting there at last year's numbers. The good news is the budget is there, so we can do journal entries to say, oh, we meant to, from October 1, start taking this amount. So those who are watching their budgets closely are gonna see a little bigger hit come out now for insurance, right? We're gonna have to make that up for the
Those
year.
adjustments.
That's okay. That's an accounting function that's behind this. We'll make that right. One of the concerns for fiscal 25 is when we run that budget in BSNA and we say, give us a 10% increase on healthcare. It doesn't take that 10% increase off what we budgeted. it takes that 10% of what we're
What you
doing,
spent.
right? That's how position budgeting works. You tell it when you have a vacancy and, hey, don't pay attention to this low number, it's gonna be big. But other than that, it bases off of experience of what your actual activity is. So we do not have a true 10% increase built into the fiscal 25 draft for healthcare.
So what kind of dollar?
Well, we thought we had 240,000 built in. And I think that just goes to cover the increase that isn't showing from the current year actuals.
Okay,
Without Melissa and it was really bad timing when we figured that out and
but better we figure it out.
we're gonna sharpen that. Yes, absolutely. We're gonna sharpen that pencil.
Right.
When Melissa gets back and we'll figure that out. Mhm.
So it's not like we're down to crunch time.
We're still closer than we've ever been.
So we're further along down the road than we.
We
Yes.
are, you know,
So-
we are.
Mhm.
I also believe, you know, we've got that bond payment built in at 750,000. Even if we started construction right now, I'm not sure, it's one thing we should have asked Eric. And actually, it's a financial advisor question he wouldn't know anyway. When's that first payment due? We're
It
gonna
might
make an
not be.
interest payment
Yeah.
first. It's probably not
Yeah.
gonna be before September 30 of 2025.
Right.
So that may be a heck of a cushion built into the fiscal
Right.
25 budget already.
But I really like this process of getting out ahead of this budget process.
Mhm.
Hopefully we can continue to do this kind of thing. Because again, it allows us an opportunity to address situations like this with the insurance.
Right,
You know,
Right.
we're not feeling like we're under the gun. And there's under the pressure of having to figure it out real quick or miss things. I think we're gonna be.
we're under the gun with insurance a little bit.
A little
though. I
bit,
mean,
but
that-
yeah.
We still have to renew October 1, and if we are making changes, if we were making no changes, Acrisure, used to be 44 North, now says, 30 days out would be, you'd want to get going if you were making no changes. We're probably making changes to something, right? And so we want to be out in front of that. I think you'll see a recommendation from the insurance committee come at your July meeting is what
Does it
is
need
what we're
to?
working towards.
Right, could
And
get
the
August first.
Insurance committee met yesterday. They've decided to meet weekly through July, just because we're gonna have so much stuff to be looking at. We're
That's
gonna look
good.
at anything and everything.
Well, that's good though. That's because again.
Yes, I'm
get-
glad it's in
Having the
place, yeah.
committee in place, moving this thing, the budget process along, it's allowing us to do this and I would hope in a more prudent and in a way that really is, again, not knee jerk. More thoughtful. So I like that. Okay. Well, it's not a good, pretty picture, but at
It's
least
known.
it's known and we have time to work through it. And if you're meeting weekly, that's great. Good. Okay.
And we haven't still built in any, revenues, because we don't know from solar.
We have not. That's another bright spot.
Yep.
We'll talk to Pete about what's realistic there. We will have it, if under construction, we will bring them on at 50% of value. It won't be,
Won't be 100, but.
won't be 100% of taxable, but it'll be half of that and.
So I was driving Wademan Road about a week and a half ago, and there's a new substation being built. I don't know if that's something to do with wind generators or if that's part of the solar, because I think that's in Isabella Township.
No,
But
where
it's,
I
you
thought they
saying?
weren't going,
So-
didn't need to build a new
Yeah,
substation.
because they were.
That one on Wademan Road
Into the.
has been there.
existing.
Now they may be.
it just looks squeaky clean and new.
It is
Mhm.
absolutely brand new and they've been in there doing work on it, so it may
Okay.
look like it's,
Under progress
pushing-
or-
Yeah, it looks like like it's something that's being constructed,
Okay,
but yeah, it's been there quite a while.
Part of the reason that they're co-locating solar with wind is that when they came through with wind development, they kind
They
of
wouldn't have to-
overbuilt that substation to be able to
Handle.
handle the future solar
Mhm.
load is my understanding. So,
Right.
yeah, you're just seeing,
I hadn't been out there for a
Big.
while, so,
okay, okay.
all right, any other discussion on the fiscal year 2025 draft budget?
Nope.
All right, and then we'll get to the invoice list discussion. The first list is May 31st. Not many big bills on it.
You see that pavilion out there?
Yeah, it's starting to take the shape and color of this building. I'm anxious to see how much use it gets. 'Cause it seems like if I was a senior, I'd want to be in a nice air-conditioned building and,
I'd be surprised.
yeah. So I didn't have any questions on the 4 bills that are on the front page, and I did look through the others and didn't have any questions on those.
No.
I didn't have any questions. I did notice that the general fund portion, as Commissioner Embry likes to point out,
Mhm.
is
So not even 30,000.
just a fraction of both of these.
That's right.
Well, then we'll move
Always
on
nice to see.
to the June 7th list. There's a few more bills there. A lot of drain work, and I did get the email from the drain office explaining about having to look
That was
at
gonna be
the
one of my
boundaries
questions.
and the
Yeah.
districts and
How'd we get to this number?
some of the costs related to it, but
Yeah, your email as well.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Mhm. Yep, thank you.
Yeah, it was nice of them to reach out.
Um, and I see our community development director here. I've been seeing a lot of the Fahey Schultz invoices coming in. I mean, for solar plan review, professional services. Are we finished with them or close to it
We won't be finished with them for probably a year.
as far as their,
We gotta build this project out.
So they're
It's
gonna-
approved. Yeah,
okay,
so it'll be next June, July.
before we stop seeing,
Next year. Remember, all of those monies are part of that escrow.
right?
That
Well, the
$100,000.
DTE pays
So
in,
it's zero cost to the county.
we're just pass through.
Yeah, we just requested an additional $75,000.
Yeah.
This week, an escrow replenishment from DTE.
And that's why we're building the budget up. So when they send that, the budget will already be there.
So,
Beautiful.
And you know how once in a while Heidi from Clark Construction or Jeff will say, oh, this isn't going in the field as we thought on the drawings, and we'll have to work through that. There'll be that the whole time they're constructing this solar farm. And this escrow is what's gonna pay for us to say, Spicer, does this make sense, right? What they wanna do in the field, it's changed, does this make sense? And so this will be there to help pay those bills as well.
that post-construction sound that they did, that post-construction.
Okay, that was my next question.
Conditions that were on.
And the
there.
light and
Yeah.
the
Yep,
sun and,
those will all come after, they're commissioned, which is, I think slated for June of 25, I think they said.
Hmm.
So we'll be probably into that fall before we're.
completely, basically over a year from now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, appreciate that, sir.
so I know the Clark construction bill of over 2 million for the construction, let's see, that would be the May construction charges. That doesn't show in our general fund, but it certainly is associated with the general fund.
Mhm.
But-
Yes, sir. There's definitely an amount of money that's transferred out from general fund to cover our 12% of that, right? Because the USDA loan covers basically 88%. And we've already gotten the USDA reimbursement for that invoice, and the treasurer's office holds that,
Mhm.
knows to hold that until we get USDA dollars back. Now the check goes,
So we're covered.
we are always covered for that.
It's not a big hit to cash flow and then waiting on the reimbursement.
Exactly.
Reimbursement first, then
So we've
so
had
cash in, cash out, as opposed to the other way around. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Questions or comments on any of the front page bills or back page?
No, other than that, that's all.
All right, we'll move these forward then to the next section for discussion. We're down to announcements. So it looks like, since I'm not gonna be here at the meeting, you've got a full plate of stuff. You have to get somebody to do your seconding and I'm going fishing.
It's hard being the.
I'm gonna
the
beat
chair,
out
isn't
some
it?
new gnats. I'm gonna battle some new gnats.
Make a just a general.
Leave it at that.
Probably some.
Is that guy? I said, I mean, that guy. I said, is the chairman, you mean? I said, yeah, he's always at all the meetings. Does he have to be at all the meetings? I said, well, he's on every single committee. I said, he can be. He
Don't
goes,
have to be.
don't have to be, but he's there. She goes.
He's
"It's
good to
just
give up his
impressed that
time."
You were there
Oh,
as often as you are. She was like, why he's everywhere.
why is he there?
Just-
That's
Call the public? Adjournment. We are adjourned.
all right.
There you go. Sir. Yeah.